Yesterday was day 2 of the Republican National Convention, and we'll get to what the sort of theme was of the night, making America safe again, which is interesting given the records of the two candidates. But I want to talk about first Nikki Haley, who ran a campaign, was the last one standing in that campaign against Trump in the Republican primary. She's the former Republican governor of South Carolina and served as the ambassador to the UN under Trump's administration, but did draw a pretty clear contrast between herself and Trump and levied some accurate but pretty aggressive attacks against him during the campaign, which is why it's sad, as we've seen with so many people, to see her kissing the ring. She spoke at the Republican National Convention to say that she fully and completely endorses Donald Trump. Now, two things I want to show you before going through some other clips as well. The first is a side-by-side with a resurfaced video from February of 2024 to remind us of the things she said about Trump. We won't go through her whole record. We've done it before whenever she announced that she was voting for him. But this is interesting given that she's talking about kissing the ring, and then on the right side of the split screen, she's kissing the ring. And then also show you Trump's reaction when she says something during her speech. He's openly in the stands sort of mocking her to the person next to him, just emphasizing further the humiliating nature of her choosing to do this, despite her understanding how bad of a candidate Trump is. So here is the split screen first.
Of course, many of the same politicians who now publicly embrace Trump privately dread him. They know what a disaster he's been and will continue to be for our party. They're just too afraid to say it out loud. Well, I'm not afraid to say the hard truths out loud. I feel no need to kiss the ring. I have no fear of Trump's retribution. I'm not looking for anything from him. My own political future is of zero concern.
Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
I did take note of people pointing out that watch as she says that, how she's nodding no.
Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
Now, that's just a Nikki Haley thing. While she makes points, she sort of nods no. But it is funny to imagine that somewhere in her head, she's thinking, no, don't do it, don't do it. And she's giving us a signal as she's saying something that is so ridiculously contradictory and unfortunate. After the end of the primary, she wouldn't endorse Trump. And then she said, I guess if I'm voting, I'd vote for him. And then now she's fully endorsing him, delivering a Republican National Convention speech in his interest. If you don't have any dedication to the principles that you purportedly stand for, you never stood for them. We shouldn't give our respect to her good points of the past or the applauding that went on, in part justifiable earlier on because it was good to see someone challenging Trump in the Republican primary. All of that has evaporated as she is choosing her own political career. She has expressed the dangers of a second Trump term over and over again on stages across the country. She's talked about how he's going to cozy up to and mirror the impulses of authoritarians worldwide. But now, there's not a future for her in the Republican Party if she doesn't kiss the ring. And that's exactly what she did. Now, here's the video of Trump saying to the person next to him, whenever Nikki Haley asserts that he asked her to speak at the RNC, he says, as it is pretty clear based on sort of his basic lip reading, that he says, she asked me, or she wanted to speak. I didn't ask her.
President Trump asked me to speak to this convention in the name of unity.
So it got slowed down there, which is why for our podcast listeners, it sounded different. He said she actually wanted to speak. It does seem like that's an accurate transcription of what he's saying there. Here we go. He says she wanted, and then the clip cuts off, but probably reasserting that it was her who wanted to speak, not him begging her to. Both Trump and seemingly Nikki Haley are perfectly willing to be very dishonest, so either one. But the fact that it seems like you caught Trump in a private moment makes it a little bit more likely that I think he could be correct, and it's super sad to see. Chris Christie, someone who has not done that sort of flip-flop, at least recently, said this in response.
Governor Christie, was that a gift for Donald Trump tonight?
No, it really wasn't. It was a complete, incredible flip-flop from what she's done. Flip-flop. I don't think any Haley voters are going to care.
Yeah, and we saw this foreshadowed by the fact that initially she said, if Trump runs, I won't run against him. And she had a respectful tone, respectful rhetoric about him. Then she flipped over, seeing there was a constituency of people in the Republican Party who were fed up with Trump. So then she started to espouse more accurate anti-Trump rhetoric. And then now she realizes for her own career, it's better if she flops back in the other direction. And this is so many Republicans, which is why, even though someone like Chris Christie isn't the epitome of character or of good policy positions, he supported Trump in the past, enabled him in the past, as late as the 2020 debates where he got COVID from Trump because he was helping him prep. But I do think it's important that we give people the space to change their views if they'll do so in a way that is consistent, right? Meaning, if Chris Christie is going to come out and speak against the dangers of the MAGA ideology, then we should applaud that while not rewriting his past. But I do think we need to be complimentary of people like him and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, because they do deserve some respect for that, given how different it is from their counterparts in the GOP, like now Nikki Haley and many others. Almost every single Republican has said horrible things about Trump in the past, accurate but horrible things, and then spun around. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, what are you doing? You're breaking my heart. But please do click that subscribe button. It's easy, it's free, and I appreciate it greatly. Back to the video. Here is Chris Hayes quickly, because yesterday was Make America Safe Again. That was the theme of the day, reminding us that if you're wanting a safer country, just statistically based on crime data, then probably Trump is not your person.
Look at what has happened with the homicide rate. In 2020, when, Donald Trump was president, he ushered in, under his presidency, the largest ever one-year jump, spiking 30%. By 2023, the homicide rate had tumbled 19% to 5.3 homicides per 100,000 people. New data from the FBI shows the rate continues to drop off dramatically, down another 26% in the first quarter of 2024 from the same time period last year. Look at what has happened.
Yeah, and just remember, even though people will say, and I have more clips coming out from the RNC in just a second here, but I do want to address this. It's one of the greatest, it's sort of, to me, one of the most infuriating subjects that Republicans lie about or are misinformed about, being crime and the record of Trump versus Biden on that. Not just because it's the most outrageous lie, because it's not, there's lots of outrageous lies, but instead because it's an outrageous lie that gets very little attention. The public opinion on crime is totally out of whack compared to what the data show. And so that is a part of what makes it that much more outrageous to me. But MAGA folks would sort of justifiably say, well, you can't blame that record increase in homicide rate on Trump because that was during the toughest part of the pandemic. And so that's what caused that. Well, the first point is I'm willing to accept that, but then you must be consistent and understand and accept the pandemic related things that caused conditions that you then have blamed on Biden, like whenever we saw increases in prices relating to supply chain problems coming from the pandemic, or the energy sector, the impact it had there, or just the recovery efforts that were done more significantly under Trump in terms of massive spending, and then also under Biden. Pretending like those sorts of things are all Biden's fault shows you to be inconsistent, because you want us to not judge Trump for these stats whenever it's him and the pandemic's impact on his presidency. So just be consistent on that. You blamed crime on Biden when it was still high, even though the initial spike happened under Trump. So let's just be a little bit more honest. That's the first point. But the second point is, we often talk about how in all of our wealthy nation counterparts, you saw inflation in the aftermath of the pandemic and the recovery efforts and all the supply chain problems. And so when you compare us and our inflation rate at different times to those other comparable economies, it shows, oh, clearly Biden wasn't exacerbating it more than any other president would have, because look at these other countries, many of them having worse inflation rates. In the case of Trump's handling when he was president of the pandemic and its conditions, it yields a different conclusion, because many countries, in the case of crime, didn't see that sort of historic crime rate increase that he oversaw. So maybe if he handled it better, we wouldn't have experienced that. But I'm still willing to say that was mostly pandemic related, if MAGA would be consistent on Biden's presidency as well. Then you have, and now I'm totally blanking on this gentleman's name. He ran for president. Johnson, I think, is somewhere in his name. And he's a billionaire guy who loves screaming in speeches.
I am ready to do whatever is necessary to get Trump back in the White House. Are you with me? Yes! 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 Trump! Trump! Trump!
You know, he does this every time when he was running for president too. He would just sort of, yes! Yes! America! And for some reason, every time he does it, something about the energy he's exuding makes me think, you can see in this screenshot if you'll do another split screen, Jade, it seems like he's just moments away from breaking down to tears. Trump! Trump! Watch it again with that context in mind.
To do whatever is necessary to get Trump back in the White House. Are you with me? Yes! Yes!
Yes! Trump! So, there's that. Little random moment. And then you have Ron DeSantis, or as Trump called him, Ron DeSanctimonious, or Ron DeSanctis, as Trump also called him, now also kissing the ring.
They can't even define what a woman is.
Right. This is just...
They can't even
worst time for a voice crack. Just the absolutely worst time. Now, one other thing I want to talk about. This is super important, and this is sort of our miscellaneous segment, so I'll put it here. Bob Menendez, the Democratic senator, has been found guilty on, I think, 16 counts for corruption, bribery, just wild stuff. A Democratic senator, powerful guy. And do you know what Democrats say? The justice system did what it's supposed to do, held this man accountable, and he should pay for it with accountability that's justified based on the corruption he engaged in. And that, I think, is a lesson that MAGA folks could really observe. I talked about before how the reaction from elected Democrats to the attack on Trump has shown a difference between powerful Democrats and how they respond to political violence versus powerful Republicans. Whenever, for example, Paul Pelosi was attacked and people like Trump were mocking it, pushing conspiracy theories that it was some gay affair gone wrong when that was not true at all, and then just making jokes over and over and over and making light of that political violence where someone almost died. And so in the case of Trump, Democrats universally denounce it, powerful ones, as we keep saying, and then you can find crazy people always online saying crazy things, and that should be denounced. But that contrast is clear. Well, it's a similar thing here, where powerful Democrats are able to say about other powerful Democrats who do bad things, hold them accountable, and now due process has played out. Bob Menendez is in big trouble, as he should be. The evidence was overwhelming, as I've been saying from the beginning, and now he's been convicted.
Yeah, remember, Bob is a figure that most New Jerseyans know. He's been in the state working in public life for decades. And so for New Jersey, this is a painful day of real heartbreak and, frankly, just deep disappointment. A jury that was sworn to objectivity, a jury of his peers, found by the highest criminal standard beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty on all 16 charges. And so, yes, he must stand up now and leave the Senate. He must do that. And if he refuses to do that, many of us, and I will lead that effort to make sure that he's removed from the Senate.
So Bob Menendez, a fellow New Jersey senator, is being explained to be a corrupt individual by his fellow New Jersey senator, Bob Menendez, brain fart, Cory Booker. And Cory Booker is principled enough to say, regardless of, they probably had a friendship, given that they were both New Jersey senators, and how heartbreaking it is that someone in this party would engage in such corruption. But we believe in law and order. MAGA, take notes. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to support the work that this show does and get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.